What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, I wanted to challenge myself in the Open Master League by not using Kyurem. As we all know, Kyurem is one of the most busted Pokemon that they've released recently. It's over 5,000 CP, it has an insane moveset, and it has a lot of neutral play into most of the meta. With that said, a lot of Dragon Breath users like Dialga and Palkia have a lot of play into it. Even Landorus with Stone Edge can potentially one-shot or come very close to it. So let's take a look at this team and see if we can keep up in the new meta with this old team. Alright, getting into the first battle of the day, we're going to see Landorus in the lead up against a Primarina. We were using Primarina ourselves yesterday, and as long as they're using Charm, this matchup is a little bit awkward for them, despite being a water type into a ground type. That's mainly because Primarina doesn't have a lot of water type offensive pressure here, only their charge moves, and Char, while it is a powerful attack, they're just getting completely out-stat product here. We go for a Sandsear Storm bait, or a debuff, I guess. Our opponent ends up coming in with a Kyurem. They try to snipe down our Landorus. We take 1 or 2 Ice Fangs, which does massive damage, and they also clear their debuff that they had on that lead matchup. In comes a charge move. I know, though, that Kyurem White is pretty slow, so Ice Fang is going to add up over time, but Dragon Breath is doing even more, and we get a full farm down, coming out with almost 100 energy. Because of all this energy that we have, we can throw Iron Heads into this Primarina, and if they're not careful, I can get to a second one and either get both shields or knock them out. Obviously, they do shield up that first move. They don't want to invest everything right now in their final Pokemon, and they do get a bit greedy. I can CMP the Iron Head, and at this point, either getting their final shield or getting a knockout on this Pokemon. They let that go. In the back, we're going to see a Rhyperior, a Pokemon that we would love to see with our Landorus. They're going to be permanently debuffed now that they have no way to switch out. We can go for Sandsear Storms. Mudshot is adding up as well, likely a Breaking Swipe coming through, but I have no worries about shielding up Breaking Swipes, because as long as I debuff them, even our Palkia can deal with this once this final shield goes down. Sandsear Storm does get shielded up here. We have another Sandsear Storm ready to go on CMP, and while our attack likely is debuffed after that Breaking Swipe, we can still farm down with either Dialga or Palkia. Sandsear Storm doesn't get the one-shot here, unfortunately, after that debuff, honestly doing not that much damage, but that's fine. We get knocked out. Dragon Breath, though, should be more than enough damage to knock them out, and since they are debuffed, there's nothing they can do against us. GG's to our opponent. Showcasing Kyurem isn't all it's going to be cracked up to be in this current meta. Alright, next game, going to be a Palkia in the lead up against our Landorus, so a pretty bad lead matchup here. I'm going to see what we can do by going for a chip and dip with the Sandsear Storm and potentially dancing around this Pokemon. While my Dialga is a pretty good answer to Palkia, this team is generally kind of weak to a Palkia lead, because if I safe swap my own Palkia, they can outpace us to a Spatial Rend. If I stay in, we get pretty chipped down, and they can still go for a Spatial Rend against us. And if I swap to Dialga, normally you're going to see a Dialga answer in the back with a Palkia lead. Our opponent goes for the Spatial Rend, and then they come in here with the Florges, so this is not looking great for us. We know Florges is one of the best answers to Dragon types in general. We go for Aqua Tail, which doesn't even go for a 2-shot here. I need to get a lot more Dragon Breath damage to even consider that. In comes a charge move, likely a Moonblast here to knock us out. They guarantee the KO by doing that. No Trailblaze bait by them. I might have lagged a turn here too, which means they're going to be able to reach another attack before we're able to reach this Sandsear Storm. At this point, I'm forced into a shield. I don't want to shield this, but I have to. I can't just use my Dialga against a 2-shield Florges at this point. So we do shield that up. We have back-to-back moves here with our Landorus Sandsear Storm coming through. Our opponent likely will let this go, knowing that I do have 2 charge moves, and they're not quite yet at the next Moonblast. They do let that move go, and in the back line, once again, that Palkia does come back in here. So if they do opt to let this go, there is a chance we can win this game by debuffing the final Pokemon. Sandsear Storm does knock out, and since they do let that move through, I'm going to try to permanently debuff this final Pokemon and see if there's any chance for us to win this game. In comes the Sandsear Storm. Our Dialga does have play to this. I'm surprised they are ABA weak to Dialga. It's going to be our only hope, though, that we can Dragon Breath this all the way down. In comes a Free Shock. We know this move is a very powerful attack. It doesn't one-shot us thanks to the attack drop, but because of the energy lead, they're going to be able to reach another charge attack here in just a second. Dragon Breath, not enough damage to farm them all the way down, and I know I'm not going to reach a charge move or mud-shot them down with our Landorus. At this point, they likely are going to win this game. I'm going to try to get the fast move farm down, but because they have Shadow Claw, we have Mudshot, they're able to get the better of us that game. Next matchup, Necrozma up against our Landorus. Fantastic lead matchup here. Honestly, even though Dialga and Palkia don't love to see it, it's not that bad, but I see this on the safe swap. I have no idea what to do. They are using a glitched moveset on Kyurem, just a base form here, which should not have Shadow Claw, but because they are abusing a glitch, they actually have access to a moveset that is illegal, which I don't really know how to feel about this. I probably should have come in Dialga here, but I honestly had no idea what to do when I saw this. In comes a Glaciate. It does end up doing a decent amount of damage. It gets an attack drop as well, and in comes an Aqua Tail, which should get the KO against this Kyurem. Honestly, I don't think that Kyurem with Shadow Claw is all that strong, but it is an interesting option. But it's also not something you should be using in the Go Battle League if you have one, because it's not a moveset that is supposed to even exist right now in the Go Battle League. So kind of a weird thing to see there. In comes a Spatial Rend. Our opponent at this point actually lets it go, tries to call an Aqua Tail bait. So despite the fact that they're using a Pokemon that should not exist, we're able to get the win. I guess good stuff there. Next matchup, we're going to see a Landorus up against a Rhyperior, a Pokemon which we would love to see. We know Mudshot is going to be super effective against them. Mudslap would be resisted by us, but they instantly safe swap with a Keldeo. This Pokemon is so cool. I wish I had a good one. I wish I had one at level 50 at the very least. I go for a Sandsear Storm bait. It's not even a bait at this point. I just want to get as much damage or debuff off against them as I can, and our opponent at this point is going to be throwing debuffed Sacred Swords into our Palkia. In general, Keldeo is a pretty good core breaker, but luckily with this team, we're not that weak to it, especially when it's on the safe swap, and we can debuff them, come in Palkia, force them to throw Sacred Swords after that debuff, and farm them all the way down. There's almost no way they can come in now with that, I think it was a Rhyperior lead, right? So there's no way we see that. Likely the third Pokemon will have to come in. Let's see what it's going to be. We see actually, wow, that's a bit of a flex. Your opponent having 2 level 50 mythical Pokemon. Meloetta is a crazy Pokemon to see here. I wish I had either one of these Pokemon. Our opponent is flexing on us with both. I have no idea if these are Hundos or not. I don't know what the proper CP is for the Hundo Keldeo or the Hundo Meloetta, but at this point we are in such a good spot because we have our Rhyperior, or we have our Landorus for the Rhyperior, we have our Dialga as well for this Meloetta, and we should be able to win this game just with alignment, but this could have been so much worse if I didn't have a team that had pretty good alignment into this matchup. Dazzling Gleam still does a decent amount of damage to us here. In comes that Rhyperior, and at this point this game is more than over, but our opponent is staying in the game for just a second here. Sandsear Storm will be thrown. Our opponent likely will shield this up, knowing that I am not debuffed. No, they actually do just let that through, so now I can get a Mudshot down. They realize at that point, not much else that Rhyperior can do in the endgame. Next game here, it's going to be the Landorus into the Landorus. Honestly, I think Landorus is still a pretty good Pokemon, even in this Kyurem White meta, where Ice Fang does, I think it's like a 7 shot against you, so it does incredible damage, and even though there is a Pokemon like that lurking around, you can still have Stone Edge potentially to deal with it, so I'm not super surprised to still see Pokemon like Landorus in the meta, but it is just a little bit less safe than it used to be. Stone Edge does end up drawing a shield. I was actually going to swap out there if they ended up letting that go and try to Dragon Breath down, but our opponent actually ended up shielding up that first move. I'm going to try to call a Sandsear Storm bait. Our opponent is going to throw a move, but it is a Stone Edge, meaning that we lose all of our Landorus, and since they are the best buddy, I was not active best buddy, they guaranteed that CMP win, so now we're in a very awkward spot. We lag a turn on entry, that's never good to see, but I think at this point we can survive a Sandsear Storm, try to knock out this Landorus, and there's always a chance that once this Landorus is gone, our Dialga is going to roam free. In comes another move. Aqua Tail should do quite a bit of damage. It should get the knockout, even though at this point our attack is lowered on Palkia. Aqua Tail comes through, no shield, and we see a Florges in the back line. Our opponent is staying in here for just a second, so it looks like there might be some hope for us. After all, we'll have to see what moveset they're on here. Hopefully no Trailblaze bait. They go for a Moonblast, which is exactly what we wanted to see. Moonblast is a ton of energy down the drain for our opponent, but I know an Iron Head is not going to one-shot. If this could get a one-shot here, I would be a lot more confident. I know at this point we would be able to farm down whatever the final Pokemon is almost certainly with our Dragon Breath damage. In comes a charge move. I do have to double shield. It seems like they are a little bit worried about our Dialga, so I want to keep ourselves healthy, and in the backline is a Kyurem White, but unfortunately for us, it is a Dragon Breath Kyurem White, which is so unfortunate because if this was Ice Fang like normal, I think we win this game, but Dragon Breath is going to do so much damage to our Palkia. I try to catch a move here on Palkia. We don't quite get the catch, and because Aqua Tail is resisted, I don't know if this is going to be enough to put them into Dragon Breath downrange. In comes the move. It doesn't do anything, and unfortunately, now they have an Ice Burn ready to go on this Kyurem. They could one-shot our Dialga, and that was so close, but so far. Next matchup here, we're going to see the Rhyperior in the lead once again against our Landorus, but for some reason, our opponent this time is staying in this matchup. This is such a bad lead for this Rhyperior to be, and that likely means either they are ABA weak to us, or maybe they want to go for like a Rock Wrecker chip and dip. We'll have to see what they're going to do. Sandsear Storm does end up getting shielded, and they swap out instantly, but into a Dialga, a Pokemon which also does not want to take all of this ground-type damage. In comes the Sandsear Storm. This is going to put them very low if they let it go, and since they already have used one shield, they're kind of forced into no-shielding that attack. Since we have so much Mudshot damage after the fact, I think all we need to do is one shield farm all the way down against this Dialga, and we should be in a pretty good spot. In comes all of these Mudshots. We can farm them down before another Iron Head is reached. Our opponent likely coming in with their third Pokemon if they have an answer to Landorus, or maybe at this point they're waiting a long time. Yeah, they might just bring back in Rhyperior. I go instantly for the Sandsear Storm to make sure that I don't have to shield a potential Rock Wrecker, and because they went for Mudslap Sneak, obviously I could have gone for one extra move. I tried to catch on Dialga because I thought they might go for one Mudshot or one Mudslap and then throw, but because they do go for Rock Wrecker, at this point I have a shield advantage for 2 Pokemon in the backline that generally beat almost everything in the meta. In comes a Florges once again in the back, so our opponent actually kind of triple weak to Landorus this game. Crazy stuff to see. Maybe I should have shielded that up, but at this point, Dialga is in such a good spot here to deal with this Florges. I can go for an Iron Head here. I don't need to shield my Dialga even at this point. As long as we land this Iron Head against them, my Dragon Breath from Palkia do just as much damage, and all I need is one Aqua Tail to one-shot the rest of that Rhyperior. We can no-shield this move, come into the Palkia, get a nice Dragon Breath down, and then Aqua Tail that Rock and Ground-type Pokemon, and this game is going to be ours. GG's to our opponent there. Next game, we're going to see Landorus into Kyurem White. That is an abysmal lead. We have two Pokemon in the back that can deal with this a lot easier. Our opponent instantly swaps out to a Dialga, and I am not in a very good spot right now. ABA Dragon from our opponent, definitely not what I wanted to see today, but I'm going to go for this Spatial Rend and try to, at the very least, get a shield advantage. In comes the Charge Move, and in comes a shield from this Dialga. We get completely farmed down, which is so bad to see, but, you know, there's always a chance here, right? Maybe I can go and get a Sandsear Storm. If this is not a Spatial Rend, or a Roar of Time, rather, I can survive this and then go for a Sandsear Storm, knock them out, and try to use a shield advantage on my Dialga to maybe win this game, but this game is looking so tough. And comes a Sandsear Storm, our opponent does let it go, and because we called the move properly, we do have a shield advantage still to go, and our opponent in the back has a Necrozma. Crazy camera angle going on right now, I have no idea what that's about, but because we have a shield advantage and potentially even a sack swap this game, there is a chance that we can still win this one. Iron Head being thrown from our opponent likely means they are running Iron Head and Outrage, which is a little bit dangerous for us to see here. I know I need to get a shield here if I want any chance of winning this. Iron Head being thrown, do they opt to shield or will they call the bait? Iron Head does end up landing, and at this point, this is such a bad spot to be in because now I need to guarantee a catch if I want any chance to win this. Outrage does get a shield here. Will I make the catch properly this game, or is our opponent going to call it? In comes our Landorus. We catch the Outrage, which is going to knock out our Landorus unless they undercharge to try to get a bit more energy on their Kyurem. Iron Head actually being thrown instead from our opponent. They do go for the Ice Fang down with Kyurem after getting an undercharge, and now we have two Iron Heads, but is this enough to knock them out before they're able to get an Ice Fang down or potentially a Fusion Flare against us? I know this is super effective damage, but I don't know how much damage it will do in the Zero Shield matchup. Iron Head coming through, nearly gets the knockout. A couple more Dragon Breaths, we get the full farm down, and thanks to that catch, we're able to win this game with a Dialga sweep in the end game. That was a very close match. Next game, we're going to see a Dialga, or a Melmetal rather, different steel type here in the lead. We're going to see what our opponent swaps in and an instant swap out into a Palkia. This matchup is very good for Dialga. Obviously, we were doing super effective damage to them, and they are doing resisted or neutral damage to us, but resisted Aqua Tails could be thrown. I know this is such a tempting bait for our opponent, and they do bait us, which is a great call by us. If I would have gone down shields there, that could have been pretty bad. I'd have to use 2 shields if I wanted to keep switch, and now that I've called an Aqua Tail, we don't have to go down any resources. With that said, they do have that Melmetal that can come in, go for a superpower pretty quickly, and guarantee that we don't get a Roar of Time off, but at this point, I'm fine just keeping switch and hoping that either my Landorus or my Palkia is good against their final Pokemon. In comes a Charge Move, almost certainly a superpower to knock us out. They're debuffed, so at this point, almost definitely going to see a swap out from them, and in comes a Zygarde. While we do have a Dragon Breath user in the back, since it's just a Palkia, which also is weak to Dragon-type damage, I'm going to go for a bit of a chip and dip and see what they want to do. Sandsear Storm does debuff them. They don't shield it, which means it does do a little bit of damage, but even after that debuff, these Dragon Tails are adding up. I'm going to shield a potential Outrage at this point. We'll see what they throw. We do shield up that right move there. Outrage would have nearly one-shot us, and at this point, these Dragon Breaths are doing so much damage to them. I have back-to-back Aqua Tails. I don't want to throw until I know I can resync the switch clocks here with these Aqua Tails. They are at the Outrage right now. Does our opponent throw on CMP? I'm going to go for it. Our opponent does go for a sneak, but at this point, getting either that second shield or a guaranteed knockout against this Zygarde will win us this game. We get that shield, and at this point, in comes the Melmetal. I'm going to try to swap if I can. Our opponent does end up throwing a charge move, but not before I can catch it on our Landorus. Because we have energy on our Palkia, as long as we can knock out this Melmetal, we should be able to win this game. I know we can survive another double Iron Bash here. It's not the strongest move in the game, and as long as we can reach this next Sandsear Storm before the third double Iron Bash is reached, I won't even have to shield. In comes the charge move. It might not be enough to knock out this Melmetal, but it should be enough here to put them into farm down range where our Palkia should be able to close out this matchup. We do almost knock them out here, but not quite enough. They do throw the charge move, but 1 or 2 Dragon Breaths should knock out this Pokemon, and we have basically a full Spatial Rend ready for that Zygarde. In comes Zygarde. Our opponent does not end up top lefting. They're going to let us throw this Spatial Rend against them. It's a little bit of overkill at this point, but might as well do it. First Zygarde I've seen in a long time. Fortunately, we're not going to lose to it. Love to see it. Next game here, we're going to see a Landorus into a Palkia in the lead. This is a very awkward lead, as we've seen all day today. Today I'm going to try, or this matchup rather, I'm going to try to swap into my Palkia and see what we can do. But our opponent, once again, with the ABA Dragon-type Pokemon, not what I love to see. Once again, just try to get a guaranteed shield with this Spatial Rend and see what they want to do. They do shield the attack here, which is very annoying. I wish I could flip switch, but because we are not able to, now our Dialga in the back has a lot of work to do. They go for a charge move at this point. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm hoping right now it's just an Iron Head. They do go for the bait, and because they bait us, I might be able to survive long enough to reach this Sandsear Storm and not go down shields. So we do have a shield advantage on our Dialga once again, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the back there's a much harder answer to Dialga than any Pokemon that we've seen so far. In comes our Dialga. Our opponent in the back does have a Melmetal, and if I can call either a bait properly or call on their first superpower with a shield, we might have a chance here. I'm going to call a double Iron Bash bait. They know it's so risky to go for a nuke early on in this matchup. Our opponent, though, they full send the superpower, meaning that now we are almost guaranteed to lose this matchup. I don't know. I thought for sure they'd go for a double Iron Bash bait on the first one, but they have played us pretty good here, and at this point, I'm going to go for a Roar of Time, try to knock them out. But even if I do, that Palkia is going to be able to Dragon Breath us down, and we likely will lose this game. They shield up the Roar of Time as well, so our opponent making all of the right reads right now. In comes yet another charge move. I have to shield up. I need to keep our Dialga, but I don't think it's going to matter. They just have too much energy generation. Another superpower comes through, and they have yet another one ready to go. Melmetal is just such a hard counter here to our Dialga, especially with the proper baits that they played out in this endgame. That was not a good matchup. We could have had a chance there, but well played to our opponent. GG's to them. Next game, though, we do see a much more comfortable lead with a Landorus into Rhyperior. We swap out a little bit slow, though. We take 2 Ice Fangs from this Kyurem White, which does about a third of our health, which is kind of crazy. With that said, we're still in a decent spot, right? We can shield this once, farm all the way down against this Kyurem, and if we can get a lot of energy into either that Rhyperior or the final Pokemon, as long as they don't wall our energy, we should be in a pretty good spot here. So we do go down a shield here, which is a little bit sad. Our opponent is waiting to bring something in. What is it going to be? Unfortunately for us, it is probably the Pokemon that can easily sponge this energy the best in the meta. It's going to be that Primarina. In comes an Aqua Tail, does almost nothing. I have another one ready to go, but this Pokemon is extremely scary to see here in the back. Another Aqua Tail being thrown. Our opponent at this point does let that move through, and because I know that they can't swap out if I bring in my Landorus, I don't give them that farm down. Instead, I'm going to try to get shields down with our Landorus by bringing it back in before they get too much more energy on this Primarina. We do draw a shield here, which is very good to see. Our opponent going to throw a charge move right before my next Sandsear Storm. I need to shield this up because I know if I get shields down, then my Dialga has a lot more play against that Rhyperior. Hydro Cannon would have knocked us out here. Good thing that I shielded that up, and because I am on my 5 cycle right now, I know no matter what, as long as I take out this Primarina or draw this final shield, I should get another Sandsear Storm off. And since they did opt to let that move through, that's actually the best case scenario because now I can permanently debuff this Rhyperior, get a lot of Mudshot chip damage against them, and get the shield with this Sandsear Storm. They can't Mud Slap us down, which means they're forced into throwing a charge move against us, and because of that, we should be able to win this endgame by coming in with our Dialga now, going for an Iron Head, and winning this matchup. Breaking Swipe does knock us out, but now Dialga can easily tank these debuffed Mud Slaps. Our opponent at this point must realize not much damage coming through. They end up top lefting. GG's to our opponents. All right, next matchup, we're going to see Landorus up against a Kyurem Black. Haven't seen this lead too often, and I'm going to swap into our Palkia. That's actually a Dragon Tail Kyurem Black, a very bad Pokemon to see here. Since that is the Pokemon that is on our screen right now, I'm going to go for an Aqua Tail. We actually throw an alignment. Very bad gameplay by me, but I wanted to get this move off before they swapped out. I go and get the shield at the very least, but they get a full Dragon Tail down against us, which is such an awkward thing to see. They have a lot of energy, but I know Dragon Tail does generate energy just a little bit slower here, so if I come in Dialga, I only have to shield once and get a nice farm down. They do save the energy on that Kyurem, which I guess that's fine by me. They're still only going to get one move off in the endgame, so I can go for an Iron Head against this Landorus, potentially knock them out here, or get a shield, or I guess if they do survive it, then maybe get a farm down against them in the backline. I know there's no move that can knock us out unless they are running Superpower, which is not a common move. Rock Wrecker is resisted, we survive it, and we keep our Dialga around as a potential catch, or maybe as some Dragon Breath damage against that Kyurem in the back. We see a Landorus come in here, a Pokemon which is a little bit tricky for our team to face, but I have a shield advantage. I have a bit of energy on our Landorus as well, and because we know at this point it is avoiding our Dialga, we're in a pretty decent spot. They do instantly shield, which means that we are not going to be able to go for Sandsear Storm baits against them. We just have to go straight Stone Edge. They do also throw Stone Edge themselves, and as long as I can land a Stone Edge here, we should be able to win this game. I can never shield the next move, though, because if I do, they are going to one-shot us with that Ice-type charge move on that Kyurem, so I need to no-shield every move from here on out, aside from that one attack. In comes a charge move, likely going to be another Stone Edge from this Landorus. It's going to do a lot of damage, but I know I can outpace him with our energy lead. Go for a Stone Edge here. Even if they catch, that's honestly going to be better for me because I would snipe down all the energy on that Kyurem, and they don't end up going for that catch, so now they're going to come back in with that Kyurem and see what they can do. Dragon Tail is doing a ton of damage to us, but I also know that I am doing a decent amount of damage to them. They're going to be forced to throw a second charge move against us here if they want to survive this fast move onslaught. They do throw all of their energy, so now it's going to come down to fast move pressure, Dragon Tail versus Dragon Breath. Who can survive? 2 Dragon Breaths later, Dialga able to win that game, just barely in the backline. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, a Shadow Rhyperior in the lead. This Pokemon, once again, a good lead matchup, but the Shadow on this Rhyperior could make it so these Rock Wreckers would do quite a bit more damage to us, but once again, they're staying in this lead matchup, which is so good for me to see. So odd to see, though, from our opponent. I'm surprised that they aren't swapping out. This matchup is pretty bad for them. I go for a nasty catch on our Dialga with this Rock Wrecker, potentially, and because this is both resisted and debuffed, it's not going to do all that much damage. In comes their own Dialga. This Pokemon is going to be able to try to farm us down here. If they do get a full farm down, that could be a little bit awkward, but after that catch, we should be in a decent spot. We're going to go for an Iron Head. Let's see if they do opt to shield this move up or if they will let it go. Iron Head is thrown, and they do let it go, which is a crazy call by our opponent. At this point, I have to hope that we can get to another Iron Head, but they get a full fast move farm down before we're able to reach that move. I can bring in our Landorus here, try to shield once, farm all the way down, and debuff their final Pokemon. As long as they don't get a second Iron Head off, we should be in a pretty good spot, but they might just get it before getting knocked out, and unfortunately for us, they do at the last second. 1 HP survive. Iron Head won't one-shot us, but it will do quite a bit of chip damage that I would have preferred not to end up taking. What is our final Pokemon going to be? I have to hope whatever it is, we can win with some debuffs and potentially extra fast pressure. It is a Palkia, so at this point, if they no-shield this, it's a guaranteed win. If they do shield, though, then we still have a decent win condition here by coming with our own Palkia. They are staying in this matchup, not clearing that debuff, which means that our Dragon Breaths are doing so much more damage than theirs. That was also so quick. That's just going to be an Aqua Tail. I can no-shield this move, and we will still have the HP lead. They clear their debuff, but at this point, it's too little too late. We have so much more HP than them. We can just tap our screen, win this game with our Palkia, and barely pull out that endgame matchup there. GG's to our opponent. Next game, Landorus up against, once again, a Palkia in the lead. It's either a really good lead or a really bad lead right now, it seems. I'm not getting a lot of neutral leads. Like, where are the Primarinas? Where are the Florigists? We're not seeing those Pokemon today. It's only you hard win it or you hard lose it. And we have hard loss to swap as well, with this Necrozma coming in to resist all of our damage. With that said, I do know this Pokemon isn't the hardest answer to us in the game, right? There's at least a little bit of play. Maybe I can get a shield advantage. Maybe I can at least get one shield down. That is what I'm hoping for. In comes the Iron Head. Our opponent likely will end up going for the no shield, but if it does get a shield, because it could be a Roar of Time, that is exactly what we want to see. Our opponent does end up shielding that attack, so now I'm going to try to no shield. Maybe it's an Iron Head bait. Maybe we can survive this move. In comes the Outrage, and it knocks us out. Not exactly what I want to see here. We one-turn lag here, which is not great. It means that now we're going to be able to get one less Mud Shot. We're going to take one extra Shadow Claw. Hopefully that does not translate to them getting to a second charge move. Outrage does get a shield from us, and now I'm going to try to go for a full farm down, and maybe Palkia is going to have play in the backline. That said, Palkia does come back in right now, which is so bad for us, because honestly, I wanted that full farm down. I wanted that Necrozma out of the way. Our opponent does end up going for a couple more fast moves. I have another Sandsear Storm. Do they shield us up, or will they fully sack their Palkia? They do just let that move go once again. Our own Palkia is brought in. What is their final Pokemon? It is a Kyurem White. This matchup isn't all that bad. I know Kyurem White obviously does have access to Ice Burn. It's going to come down to, though, can I reach 2 Aqua Tails before that Ice Burn will be reached? I think, though, because I didn't get a ton of farm on our Palkia against their Palkia, they are able to outpace us just barely to the next charge move. If I could have got a bit more energy, maybe I could have won this one, but Ice Burn knocks us out, and at this point, Ice Fangs are going to do way too much to Landorus, unfortunately not winning that endgame matchup there. All right, next game, a much better lead. It's Solgaleo into our Landorus. This is a very interesting Pokemon to see, and we actually see a Waterfall Primarina here on the safe swap. Maybe I should have come in with our Dialga, but I end up coming in with Palkia, knowing that this fast move pressure is doing nothing to us, and they will not one-shot us with this Disarming Voice. This is a pretty awkward spot to be in, though, at this point, because I know that we have to go for 2 or 3 Aqua Tails against them to knock them out, and then I know that the potential ability for them to flip switch advantage is always there. Aqua Tail does end up doing a decent chunk of damage, but not enough to 2-shot, so at this point, I'm going to shield up, overfarm a lot of energy, and hope that this is their best place to soak Palkia energy that they have, because I know Roar of Time, or Spatial Revenge rather, or even just Aqua Tail spam could be good against no matter what Pokemon would be in the backline. Aqua Tail is coming through. At this point, though, I am so low on HP, these waterfalls are adding up. I do have to throw that move before I build up any extra energy, and now I'm going to come back in with our Landorus, because I don't want to give him a farm down. I want to keep that energy for whatever their final Pokemon is. Let's see what it's going to be. We end up going for a Sandsear Storm. They let it go, which is pretty good for us to see, and in the back is going to be a Kyurem White. We're able to just barely reach the Sandsear Storm, likely going to draw a shield, but even if we don't, we can win the game just with fast move pressure with our Dialga. We do get a shield here, and at this point, as long as I can farm them all the way down before they're able to reach a second charge move, we should be able to win this game. I know that at this point, these Ice Fangs aren't doing too much to us after that debuff. In comes a shield on a Fusion Flare, and our opponent, because they will not get to another charge move at this point, is in such a tight spot. We have a lot of energy on Dialga, energy on Palkia. They realize it is over. GG's to them. Next game, I'm going to see a Rhyperior once again in the lead. So as I'm saying, it's either a really good lead or a really bad lead. This one is so much better than these Palkia leads that we've been seeing. I am trying to catch a Psyshock on our Dialga. I think we ended up getting it here. Meloetta once again on our screens. I wish I had a good one. I'm still working on my masterwork research, but that freaking research is the worst thing in the world. It's like wait 3 weeks and then you have to wait another 3 weeks after the fact. So I won't even know if my shiny Meloetta is any good for probably a couple months from now. We have no idea what else we have to do with this research. So maybe if I get a good one, I could use it for Master League, but my current Meloetta is so bad, so I don't think I'm ever going to use this Pokemon, at least not anytime soon. Our opponent goes for a Dazzling Gleam against us. I'm going to go for the Roar of Time, guarantee the knockout against Meloetta. And now, what do they bring in? It is going to be that Rhyperior. They get a couple Mudsteps of energy, which is a little bit scary, but we have a bit of energy of our own on our Landorus, and I should be able to go for debuffs if they do swap out against whatever they come in with. In comes a charge move here from this Rhyperior, and at this point, I don't throw energy, and knowing that the Sandsear Storm would not be enough to knock out, and also knowing just how annoying Landorus can be to face, if they do end up having a Pokemon that is a little bit tricky for our Palkia to deal with in the backline, I want to be able to go for a Sandsear Storm and swap out after the fact, so I can go potentially for a debuff and then use our Palkia in a less than good matchup. Our opponent is going for a shield and then a breaking swipe against us, a breaking swipe that does not get a debuff. The first one did get a debuff against us though, which is a little bit annoying. In comes our Sandsear Storm. Is this enough after that attack drop? Let's have to wait and see. In comes the Sandsear Storm. It is enough after the Mud Shots here to knock them out. I can debuff the final Pokemon. They realize at that point that is such a bad spot to be in, and we're able to win the game. Next matchup, another good lead matchup for us here. The Necrozma, which means that our Mudshots are going to do a lot of damage to them. They say swap a Palkia Pokemon that while I do have Dialga as a hard answer for, it's not as hard of a response as you would think. And I know a lot of the times they're going to be trying to bait out a Dialga here with a Palkia say swap. So instead, I'm going to go for a Sandsear Storm bait this time and just shield one's farm all the way down with Palkia. We know that these Aqua Tails will go quite a long way against Necrozma, so even though I do have to go down a shield here, we should be able to get it back here in the backline. Our opponent is going to likely bring back in that Necrozma, and depending on the moveset, either they're going to go for Dark Pulse or maybe Outrage against us, depending on if they're running Sunsteel Strike as a charge move. In comes an Aqua Tail. Our opponent does let that one go. The next Aqua Tail will outpace them before a charge move will be reached, which means this should get a knockout or a shield. I guess it wouldn't quite get a knockout, but if they do let this go, they're going to really rely on that third Pokemon, so they do end up shielding. They overfarm a ton of energy at this point, though I will let this go, come in with our Landorus, and see what their final Pokemon is going to be. Dark Pulse being thrown likely means they have Sunsteel Strike as their second charge move, which means that they don't have a ton of charging pressure against our Dialga, but in comes an Ice Chain Kyurem White. I know, once again, this matchup is pretty good for Dialga. Just shield a single time, tap our phone screen as much as we can, get a full farm down, go for Iron Heads against that Necrozma, and we should be able to win this game with just raw charging pressure. In comes another Dragon Breath down here from our Dialga, and now we have nearly back-to-back Iron Heads against this Steel-type Pokemon, and despite being resisted, it is going to do quite a bit. Necrozma is not the bulkiest Pokemon out there. Iron Head plus Dragon Breath damage is going to whittle away at this Necrozma, and we can reach this move before they're able to get to back-to-back charge moves. Iron Head should be enough to knock out and secure us a win here in this matchup. Dialga is such a strong Pokemon against these Kyurems, as we've seen all day today. I think Kyurem, while it is a good Pokemon, there are so many Pokemon that can check it in this current meta. We're able to get a 2-3, unfortunately, to end off the day, but overall, a positive day in the Go Battle League with this team. I loved using our Landorus once again. I was a little bit scared when I saw how much Ice Fang did to it, but because there's so many teams that are kind of just disrespectful of it right now, I think Landorus is still a very good pick, and Double Dragon to counter all of these Kyurems just seems like an unfair cheat code in this meta right now. So give this team a try if you want to try to climb in the Go Battle League. A very fun one, and these Pokemon are likely picks that if you have played Match League in the past, you do have right now. So this old team definitely works in this new meta. Alright, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed the battles and you want to see more content like this in the future, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you again, though, for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.